You've got hundreds of miles of blood vessels in your body, and they're plaqued up too. You've treated one little tiny area. You've done nothing to treat the problem. Now you're back on your meds again, sweeping the symptoms under the rug. What have you done to correct anything? Oh, well, it wasn't that. It was my carotid arteries. I had them go in there and scrape my carotid arteries out. Well, that's all well and good, but you know what? What about the other hundreds of miles of blood vessels? Have you fixed the problem? No. The things that I'm talking about that I just mentioned, they actually correct the problem, so that you don't need the surgery and you don't need the drugs. Am I saying you're treating them? No, I can't say that. Because you can't say that unless you wear a white coat and have an MD next to your name. Okay? But if you supply your body with the right tools, it can do amazing things. That's the point I'm trying to make. Okay? God didn't create us with drug deficiencies. Well, I have chronic headaches. That must mean I have a chronic Tylenol deficiency. That's not how God created us. Okay? He didn't create us with drug deficiencies. I don't have any problem with emergency medicine to save a life. Okay? Or sometimes, yes, there's extenuating circumstances, and pharmaceuticals may be the only way to control something. Okay? I'm not talking about the extenuating circumstances. I'm talking about 60% of the population being on at least one medication in America. And it's all by design. So if we go further, in this greedy, power-driven world, eradicating disease is not on the list of priorities with the medical establishment. Control of disease is. That is why we have a branch of government called the Center for Disease Control. Notice that it wasn't named the Centers for Disease Cures. Where would all these multinational corporations turn to replace their soaring profits if disease were being cured? How do you think the international stock markets would react if these companies suddenly saw their sales plummet because people no longer required expensive drugs that are driving many to complete poverty? Think about this. The people that own these drug companies, and we're going to look at this in depth, they are as evil of people, or whatever they are. They are as evil of an organization or people that we have on the planet. Okay? Many of these are absolutely and totally interlinked in with the highest echelons of the Illuminati, the occult, the establishment, the global elite, whatever you want to call them. They're the ones that are producing these things. And you want to entrust them with your health? The very people that want to see you wiped off the planet? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If pharmaceutical drugs were truly the answer to our medical maladies, where are the success stories? Sure, the media and the medical establishment can zero in on a few remarkable cases. The charade won't work if they didn't at least have that. But in the big picture, modern medicine has been a complete failure. Instead of all the wonderful success stories, we hear about horror stories of medical malpractice, overdosing, terrible side effects, and in some cases even death. But the media doesn't want you to know about these typically. Just take a walk in any hospital or nursing home to see for yourself what the so-called medical panacea has done. Many of the people in these institutions are like zombies because they're being pumped full of powerful drugs. After visiting one of these establishments, you'll probably question whether these great promises that are held out are really true. Is this what we in the West call medical advancement? Modern medical medicine is ruining more lives than it claims to be helping, and it has turned countless numbers of people into pharmaceutical junkies. Now I'm going to read this little article that was in the paper here locally this week, and it was entitled, now this was in our paper, so there is some truth out there. This was from September 14th, and it was entitled, it's from the Associated Press, can't accuse me of being biased here, Drug Firms Get a Bitter Pills to Swallow. And in Trenton, New Jersey, just about every segment of the medical community is piling on, well actually this was written in Trenton, New Jersey, but this applies to all America. Just about every segment of the medical community is piling on the pharmaceutical industry these days, accusing drug makers of deceiving the public, manipulating doctors, and putting profits before patients. Recent articles and editorials in major medical journals blast the industry. Medical schools, teaching hospitals, and physician groups are changing the rules to limit the influence of pharmaceutical sales representatives. And 3 top editors of the prestigious New York Journal of Medicine last month publicly sided against the drug industry in a U.S. Supreme Court case over whether patients harmed by government-approved medicines may still sue the state in courts. Now, even the medical establishment, it's gotten so flagrant, so out of control, even many in the medical establishment are coming against them. Okay, now remember, what did I start out this teaching today defining? We define the word pharmakia, which is where we get the root word for pharmacy, pharmaceuticals, and these types of things. If we have defined that root word as being evil and having to do with witchcraft and sorcery, might we expect to see some evil things associated with this very profession? And that's all I see, essentially. Okay, let's go further. The influence that the pharmaceutical companies, the for-profits, are having on every aspect of medicine is so blatant now that you have to be deaf, blind, and dumb not to see it. Who said that? The Journal of American Medicine Association editor, Dr. Catherine DeAngelis, a longtime industry critic. It's not a chiropractor saying it. This is the Journal of American Medical Association. Dr. Catherine DeAngelis said this. That she goes on to say, we have just allowed them to take over. And it's our fault, the whole medical community. Manipulation of the studies and the publications by pharmaceutical and medical device industries is either increasing or there has been more exposure of these practices, she wrote. She said industry influence includes swaying doctors and medical students to their brands with gifts, funding research at top teaching hospitals, but keeping control of the studies and the results. See, so much of the time, if we see the result of a study, it's because it's been bought and paid for by some private pharmaceutical group. And do you think the study's not going to be biased? It has to be biased. They bought and paid for the study. They're not going to police themselves, that's for sure. So that obviously brings us into the whole conflict of interest. Even taking over the continuing they've even taken over the continuing medical education system for doctors by running courses on new treatments. So you can imagine the pharmaceutical industry offering the doctors what they call their CEUs, their continuing education. I have to get 40 hours of CEUs every 2 years to maintain my license here where I'm at as a chiropractor. And the medical doctors have to do something very similar. Well, you can imagine it's just they're being bombarded. They've got their pharmaceutical sales reps coming in, brainwashed them that way. They've been brainwashed in college, and now they've got their CEUs being sponsored by the pharmaceutical companies. Critics say such courses are taught by company-paid speakers who often promote expensive new drugs over the older, cheaper ones. That's what it's all about. It's always about money. The love of money is the root of all evil, and that has everything to do with what we're talking about today. Is it possible that there's a darker side to pharmaceutical medicine? I think we've already proved that, but we're going to way more prove it coming up here. Could it be that the pharmaceutical industry represents an ancient priesthood that practices sorcery and witchcraft on an unwitting populace? Oh, now I've crossed the line, saying that. Well, we'll see if I've crossed the line. In search of these answers, I spent countless hours doing painstaking research. Now remember, this is Greg Ciola writing this article. Okay, I'm going to be interjecting along the way, but I read this and I thought it was very accurate. In search of these answers, I spent countless hours doing painstaking research to get to the bottom of this. What I discovered was truly amazing. The evidence is there for all who are searching for the truth. The first place I began to search for my answers was in the Bible. As a Bible student, I felt that there must be a deeper message relating to this subject. Some of the most shocking and convincing evidence that unlocked what I was looking for came from two words, sorcery and witchcraft, in which the 18th chapter of the book of Revelation, for instance, it deals with the whore of Babylon and her eventual destruction. Verse 23 is what really caught my attention. And again, we read this earlier, but it says, "For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived." Translated sorceries from the word pharmakia. I thought to myself, that's a pretty interesting statement. What is this passage trying to say? I took out my concordance, looked up the derivation of the word sorcery. I practically fell off my chair when I found out that it comes from the Greek word pharmakia. The definition the concordance gives for this word is medication, magic, sorcery, and witchcraft. The very next word in the Greek is pharmakis, which is derived from pharmakion. The word means a drug or spell-giving potion, a druggist, a pharmacist, or a poisoner, a magician, or a sorcerer. You know, it's funny, I drive by, they got these new signs on the Walgreens, I don't know if you've seen those, and it has this little pestle, and this little, a pestle and a mortar or something. It's the thing that you take the little, it's like a stone thing, and it's this little cup, and you can grind up herbs and stuff like that in it, and it's got these little stars shooting out of the top like you're dealing with magic.